Hi guys, this is Hiro. How's everyone doing today? Ajabala Kimcho, Aj Sub Kesoho. So today I'm going over how to navigate a malefic Mahadasha in your 20s, right? I'm focusing on the word Mahadasha. Why? Because Mahadashas are much longer than Antardashas, right? You could have a malefic Antardasha, but it's usually going to only last up until about 3 years, right? So yes, those 3 years could be tough, but it is not the end of the world, right? But for example, in a decade, like for example, your 20s, if 5 plus of those years are tough, there's a completely different way to navigate it, in my opinion. Or you can't just kind of fake it till you make it, right? This is a largely substantial part of your life that you need to deal with, right? Now, the Mahadashas I'm pretty much talking about is Ketu, Rahu, Saturn, Mars, and any functional malefic Mahadasha or any malefic Mahadasha in general, right, that you could be running. Now, the target for this video is if you have one of these dashas ending from the time you turn 28 to before you turn 32. Okay, so that would be like the prime. Why? Because usually malefic dashas, usually, right, I'm just talking in general, they get worse towards the end, right? Some of them can have a really hot start, yes, but in general, they are a little bit worse at the end, right? Especially from like an ego level, right? It's just like, when will this end? Blah blah blah. So this would kind of be like the prime for this video, right? And why am I specifically focused on 20s? Well, because 20s is kind of like, you can kind of say, especially in the Western world, or even the way that society, even in India or any other part of the world, has been westernized, right? Your 20s are kind of like your make it or break it years, right? You probably just finished school, your your life path is kind of unfolding, right, from an external level. People are looking to see, what your relationship status is like, right? They're kind of trying to project where you're going to be in life based off of the success you've done in your 20s, right? Anything before your 20s, you're kind of still growing up, right? Anything after your 20s, I mean, no one really cares, right? Because you're like settled and stuff like that, right? Yes, you could, find happiness in your 30s and 40s and blah blah blah, but there's a different level of expectation that goes on in your 20s, right? And when you have a malefic dasha, a malefic mahadasha, to be specific, it's tough, right? Especially when you have it ending in these, right? Because that means if you have it ending in these, right, that means from 25 after, you are only running the malefic mahadasha until it ends, okay? And so your late 20s, which is like, I guess you can say like the prime of your 20s, it's like, what have you produced materially, right? So I'm going to kind of go over how to navigate it, okay, in my opinion. Firstly, what you want to do is you want to avoid anything that's going to physically harm you or get you into legal trouble or anything hard to undo, right? You don't want to necessarily, for example, if you have a habit of speeding in a car, right? You don't want to continue doing that, right? You get in a car crash, you could become paralyzed, right? You can have your back messed up, your knees, whatever, right? There's all kinds of disaster that can literally happen from you doing that, right? So anything that is physically harming you, that can, suddenly just cause some great physical disaster, you want to kind of avoid, right? Now, I'm not saying, for example, like, don't go to the gym or anything like that, right? That is not what I'm saying, right? I'm saying is don't do anything dumb, right? That's going to really put you in harm's way physically, right? I'm not saying don't take any risks or anything like that. I'm kind of going to cover that later, right? But just don't do anything stupid, right? That's putting you in unnecessarily physical harm's way, okay? Or anything legally, right? Don't do anything dumb legally, right? Don't do because, like I said, these two things, I mean, once they happen, right? They're there. Now, I'm not saying, your life is over if you physically harm yourself or you get into some kind of legal trouble. But for example, if you do something dumb and you go to jail, right? I mean, you could be in jail for a really long time, depending on what you do or what you are claimed to have done or whatever, right? So don't do anything unnecessarily on the legal side as well, taking any unnecessary risks, okay? Next thing is, do not focus on proving yourself, okay? In your 20s, right, like I said, there's a large expectation thrown on you, right? What's happening, right? Are you going to find, the best spouse? Are you going to have the most money? Are you going to be the best looking? Whatever, right? You got to understand, there's a quote, right? And I think it goes something like this. Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter, don't mind, right? I think that's a quote, right? Basically, what my point is, do not try to prove yourself, right? In my, West, I guess you can say American Indian community, and I'm pretty sure this is true across all communities worldwide for the most part, right? We have these things called, there's basically these aunties, right? Or these women of the older generation, right? I'm not talking about old. I'm talking about like basically people who would have kids, but kids who are still 30 or less, right? Or specifically 20 or less, right? And they basically cannot stop criticizing anybody's kid that's not their own, right? And I realized over the years that there is absolutely no way to satisfy these people, right? And a wise person would know that, there's certain people that you just can't satisfy, right? And there's certain people that are always going to accept you, right? So do not try to prove yourself or satisfy anyone, right? Because most likely the people that you're trying to prove yourself to most likely don't care, or if they do, they're going to find something else to nitpick about, okay? The other thing, I am not saying that you want to just go out in public and be a slob, right? I don't take the other extreme, right? But don't try to necessarily, buy a Mercedes and try to show off that, oh man, I'm successful and all this, right? Because what you're doing is you're inviting that unwanted negative energy, right? For example, you could, get some new Mercedes, right? Or some new Audi, and then you go out and then they're like, oh, what does he do? Oh, actually, you know what? I heard from this person, he doesn't really make that much money, even though that might not even be true, right? But I think you guys get the point. Don't focus on proving yourself, okay? It is not going to end well, okay? You need to just accept that some people are just ridiculous in their own mindset and their own expectations, okay? And sometimes it's not even valid. Sometimes their kids could be a complete bum, right? But they still have something to say about you, right? Or someone right? There's just nothing you can do about it, so don't try, okay? And in your Malefic Dasha period, definitely, like I said, don't try to prove yourself, okay? The next thing is pick rational relationships and income options, okay? Notice how I didn't say, like, I'll explain what I mean by rational, right? Things that make sense. I didn't say pick the safest income options. I'm not saying don't invest at all, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying really like write stuff down, okay? That's pretty much what this means. Write down the pros and cons of anything. If you're considering someone for a relationship, even for a friendship, right? I mean, you don't have to go to extreme for each one of your friends, right? But just write it down. What are the actual pros and cons I see from this person, right? What are the actual red flags and green flags, right? You want to write it down and rationalize, right? Because when you're up here, the malefic energies that you're running can have a tendency to overwhelm you and influence your decision in a way that shouldn't, right? But if you write it down, there's a lot better chance that you're going to be able to look at everything objectively, right? Same thing with your income options, right? It's okay to invest, but say, hey, look, I'm going to invest this much, and at this price, I'm getting this much out, right? Just write it down, right? Obviously, I understand things do change sometimes, right? So you might need to adjust what you wrote down, but have plans, right? You need to have plans for your relationship and your income options, right? This is not stuff that people consider. Now, I talked about only investing here, right? Even your job, right? Pick ones that make sense. What is the pros and cons of your job, okay? Don't somebody else might hit you up, right, about some fancy thing, right? But you really need to weigh that out. Or you might be considering staying at somewhere where you shouldn't be staying, right? I would strongly advise in a Malefic Dasha, and I'll get to that in a second, on try to hold on to anything that you can for the most part, but just for example's sake, there might be a situation where you might need to leave, right? So you want to write it down, right? And then go from there. So pick ones that really make sense, right? Now, now you might be wondering, how do I know what makes sense? That's really personal, right? If you want my opinion, I mean, just in general, I might circle back to this maybe at the end of the video, but just really analyze what's a want and what's a need and go from there, okay? And I have other videos on like relationships and stuff like that you can watch for a better perspective on that. Next is monitor your ego expectations, right? This kind of ties into proving yourself, right? I get so many emails, right, where it's like, oh, I want this fancy job. I want my career to blast off. I want my dream partner, whatever, right? You need to understand that not everyone is going to end up with their dream person, and not everyone is going to, have the grand success in life, right? This is not a movie, right? You are not living in a movie. You are not the star cast person of a movie. You are just you're just one person out of how many billions of people there are on this earth, right? Not everyone is going to find their dream partner. Not everyone is going to be rich and famous. And you need to accept that, right? You need to monitor your ego expectations. Even in your own community, you might not have the best looking partner. You might not have the best job, right? You have to accept that, right? And I've learned to be happy with whatever you get, right? I'm not saying but at the same time, I'm not saying to just pick anything, right? If you are educated and you have a PhD, I'm not saying to possibly pick some job that has nothing related to that field and that's not going to help you pay off your loans or things like that, right? Or I'm not saying if you're a good looking, religious person to just pick the first person that throws attention at you, right? I'm also not saying that, right? I'll just leave it at that. So just monitor your ego expectations, right? But yeah, focus more on the other extreme, not the extreme that I just said, right? Where it's just like, don't try to be overly flashy, right? And this kind of stems from proving yourself, okay? Next, be okay if you are not happy, okay? This has two parts to it. One, happiness to me is a state of mind, right? It's not the emotion. The emotion is like joy or bliss or whatever you want to call it, right? That you definitely have to be okay with. You are not going to be blissful and joyful all the time, okay? You are going to be sad, frustrated, annoyed, angry, whatever, right? And you have to be okay. Do not try to change that with alcohol or drugs. You have to accept that there is a certain ratio of emotions that you're going to feel in your own human experience, right? And that you need to accept that ratio for what it is, and do not try to alter that ratio, right? Just accept the emotions that you feel, right? Don't try to change them. It will most likely end in disaster if you do. The second part is, if you actually do believe that happiness is a state of mind, also accept that sometimes it's going to be hard to have that state of mind during the Malefic Dasha. It's completely okay. Yes, you want to strive for having that happiness state of mind and that state of acceptance as much as possible. But if you don't maintain that, do not quit, okay? Do not just check out and start, smoking and drinking with your friends, right? Do not do that. Just accept that, hey, you know what? Yesterday I wasn't really as happy. What can I do to change that besides extremely temporary fixes, right? And not only what can I do to fix that, but just accept, hey, look, I'm in this thing, right? Let me accept that there might be days, weeks, possibly even months or even years, unfortunately, where I might have a lot to go through, right? I think almost everyone in their life goes through a period where there's, a time of multiple months, I'll just say it like that, a time of multiple months where they are really, really like, man, this feels like hell on earth, right? But it's just a part of the experience, okay? Once or twice, or sometimes, unfortunately, for some people, more than that, a lot more than that, you're going to feel that, right? And that's just a part that you have to live with. Take planned risks. Be prepared. Okay? You want to be as prepared as much as possible, right? And this starts at very big things and very little things, and goes all the way down to very little things, okay? Very little things could be just at the gym, right? I just came back from the gym, right? I am prepared at how much weight I'm willing to squat, okay? I'm not trying to go overboard and risk throwing out my back, okay? So that's what I mean by take planned risks, right? You can take risks, right, to, let's just say I want to do X, Y, and Z more, in a certain time or next week, that's fine. But try to plan it out as much as possible, right? Now, I'm not saying to be completely boring, right? I'm not saying that. There's absolutely no flavor in life, right? It's not what I'm saying, okay? But what I'm saying is, don't take a risk of going like 100 miles an hour, to squeeze in front of the car, to kind of go around the car in front of you and squeeze and take your highway exit, right? That would be an example of a risk that's not planned and that's completely unnecessary, right? But you want to take planned risks. Now, I understand sometimes there's opportunities in life and blah, 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 that you need to proactively take that risk right there and then on the spot, right? Again, you just want to be as grounded as possible, right? In my opinion, the more planned you are, the more grounded you are, right? But sometimes you have to be grounded on the spot, right? That's completely fine, but just be as grounded as possible. If you're ever in doubt during this period, I'd recommend you not take the risk. In general, right? You can talk to a guru or something like that, which I'll get to in a second for more advice, right? That's more relevant to your situation, right? And here's the other thing. Actually, I'll just go into the next point right now. Try to get advice from religion or a guru, right? There's all kinds of people that give advice. I just recently made a video on, the sources you're getting advice from, specifically the dangers of internet advice, okay? I'm not sure if that was 1 or 2 separate videos. I honestly forgot. But when, certain people give advice that's great for certain situations, but that might not be great for your situation, right? And they might not even have any idea about your situation, right? I'm not saying to not take any advice, but try to take advice from guru or credible people, like very, very credible people that you actually trust, like extremely, extremely trust, or religion in general, right? The religion does not change, right? Now, there are certain religions from your perspective or my perspective or anybody's perspective that's more valid than others. This is a general point, right? You need to have some trust and belief in yourself to pick the right sources, right? But I just want to let you know that to basically just monitor the advice that you're getting, okay? Next thing is that your diet, exercise, and lifestyle does play a factor in this, right? Your diet, right? The better food you consume, the better your energetic state is going to be, and the less, anything malefic is going to have a negative impact on, your, I guess you can say your energy, right? Same thing with your exercise, your lifestyle, right? I know I said I wouldn't say anything on meditation, but like you can throw that in here, or yoga or whatever, right? What you do and what you consume and all that is going to affect your energy, which is going to affect how grounded you are and the decisions you make, and which is going to affect the people you keep and all that kind of stuff, right? So you want to just make sure that, hey, look, these are relevant, right? I know a lot of people, when it comes to these Malefic Dasha videos, they want to hear, just wear like a red shirt on Tuesday or Wednesday, and your girl of your dreams is going to appear right there, right? That is not realistic advice in my opinion, okay? These are definitely factors that you want to try to improve as much as possible. And lastly, you need to constantly adjust your mindset continuously. Now, what does that mean, right? This is a start point. Okay, now you might be thinking right off the bat that this ties into this, right? Constantly improve your diet, your exercise, your lifestyle, whatever. Yes and no, right? Yes, it does play a factor into this, right? But what it actually does play a factor into is everything in general. And what do I mean? Let's just say you have a relationship, right? And this relationship started when your Rahu started, right? And at the end, it's not going so well, right? The only way Jupiter is going to support it, possibly, right? And so that it'll last, is if you adjust the way you view this person. So for example, let's just say you got into this person with Rahu because you just wanted a partner. This partner was good looking. You wanted the home, the car, the kids, the dogs, whatever, right? You wanted all that shit. Now, Rahu's going to try to strip it away. Now, Jupiter can give you and have you keep the same person and family, right? But it's going to need you to adjust your mindset. If you're still in that illusionary mindset, it's not going to end well, right? You need to get in the mindset of, oh man, this is my my spouse to take care of, right? Or this is my kids to take care of. These are not like little prize item things to just show off to the world, right? This is an example of what I mean by adjust your mindset, okay? If there's anything, that's probably the most important thing that I said in this video, okay? So just keep that in mind, right? Because a lot of the times, people don't want to break up at the end of the Malefic Dasha, right? It's like, come on, it's not fair. There's got to be a better way. And there is a better way, right? But that better way means you got to change, right? So whatever that involves, do that. And you got to also make all the right choices here, right? That's the other thing. You can't make not good choices and expect good outcomes in a Malefic Dasha, right? This is just your karma. At the end of the day, yeah, I wish I can give you some, some cheat code or some shortcut, right? But at the end of the day, this is your karma and you got to deal with it, okay? Now, this is the best way to do it. And in my opinion, none of this is like, oh my God, this is so hard, right? Like I'm saying, avoid physical harm. Don't do anything dumb legally, right? This is advice that will work and that's not necessarily crazy, right? This is just the stuff to focus on, right? Right, and I'll actually dive a little bit deeper into this. Pick rational relationships before I end the video, right? Rational relationships, right? And this kind of ties into the point or the example that I just gave around this point, where sometimes you might pick someone for some reason, right? You want to be very, very, very aware of why you picked the person that you picked. And that's what it comes to writing it down, right? If you are picking the person, possibly subconsciously out of lust or out of some ego desire to prove yourself or prove to other people about this new relationship, right? It is not going to end well, okay? Somebody could be super good looking and you just can't wait to show them off to all your friends and just cuddle with them all day and all this kind of stuff. I would highly, if that's the main reason, right? I would highly advise you to reconsider, okay? And you know that you're doing this because if somebody else has similar, okay, let's just say you're picking that person, right? And you're rationalizing it in your brain. You're believing what you want to believe, that you're actually not picking that person for the reasons that I just said, even though that's actually why you might be picking this person, but that you're actually picking them for another reason, right? Let's just say they are, let's just say you rationalize to yourself that they are like religious or family oriented or something, right? And this is actually why you picked this person. They're caring or whatever. If you see somebody else with those same traits or let's just say multiple other people with those same traits, but for some reason you're just not feeling it with those people, you need to really reconsider your criteria here, all right? Or how much you really fooling yourself or lying to yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, you're only gonna hurt yourself, right? I'm not trying to point fingers or anything like that, but at the end of the day, I just want you guys to have the best results possible, okay? So that's it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, you can feel free to let me know. And until next time, I will talk to everyone later. Thank you all very, very much for watching.